Welcome back. After 1 week away, this is Terry Fisher, pastor at Winchester Community United Methodist Church, recording videos again. Bishop gave us a week off. I hope you enjoyed watching his message. I certainly did. Before I start the message for this week, though, I want to address some questions that have come my way concerning when we might once again begin hosting our in-person worship services. The short answer, not yet. This past week, the bishop sent out a rather detailed email explaining the reasons why he believes it's not safe to resume in-person worship services, and I agree with him completely. You may have heard about churches that have started doing that, and some negative experiences. In fact, there was a church in Northern California that hosted a worship service on Mother's Day, and the next day, one of their church members tested positive for the coronavirus, and so 180 people who were in worship all needed to be tested as a result of that. And so our county has continued to see an increase in cases and an increase in deaths. In fact, Mother's Day weekend alone, 19 people in our county died from the coronavirus. And so the total deaths in our county are approaching 300. And so please stay safe. If you need to go out, please wear a mask. And as soon as the bishop gives us the word, we will begin meeting in person again. And so thank you for your patience, but please stay safe. When I was a child, I used to watch a television program called Romper Room, hosted by a lady that we all knew as Miss Nancy. And during each episode, one of the things Miss Nancy did was she held up a hand mirror. Now, her hand mirror was more like a frame that she could actually see through, but she called it her magic mirror. And she'd look into that mirror, and she would call out the names of children that she said she could see in her magic mirror. Now, one thing I noticed was she never called out the name Terry, not the whole time I watched her show. But I thought of her this week as I was preparing for this message, because I was thinking about the people who have told me that they're watching these videos. Some are family members like my niece Nicole, or in-laws Tom and Maggie who live in California. Some are friends like my friend Larry, who lives in San Diego, or Rick in Cincinnati. And then, of course, Gloria, who lives in Piqua, and Josie, who lives up in Michigan, as well as my mother-in-law, Gail, who also lives in Michigan, has started watching. We even have friend Stephanie, who actually lives in England, who told me that she's been watching the videos. And then, of course, there's the good people of Winchester Community United Methodist Church, people like Thomas and Janie and Bill and Nancy and Lawana and Mary, Prudy and Bill, Ed and Anna, Etta, Joyce. I got to stop naming names. Of course, how about Dan, Elizabeth, and Jennifer? And we could keep going. Grace and Edmund, Gail, Kristen. But I'm going to stop naming names right now. Maybe next time I'll get to some of those whose names I didn't mention. But thank you all for watching these videos and for giving me feedback too. I really, really appreciate that. So far, our YouTube channel has 28 subscribers. And most of the videos have gotten 50 to 100 views. And so that's great. Very excited about that. The reason I think about that is because this letter, Philippians, and we're still in the book of Philippians, is very personal. And Paul talks about the people in Philippi and how much they mean to him. And we've heard his words. I thank my God every time I remember you, constantly praying with joy for every one of you in all of my prayers. And it's right that I feel this way because I have you in my heart. Paul had a very tender relationship, very tender memories of those folks. And he told them, be glad and rejoice. And one of the reasons we are glad and rejoice are because of the people God brings into our lives. Now, this is the fifth message in Philippians. And this one I titled Inspiring People. And I chose that title because it is both a verb and a noun. Think about that. You'll figure out why. Well, in the passage that we're looking at today, Paul mentions two other people, mentions them by name, Timothy and Epaphroditus. And so he says, I hope in the Lord Jesus to send Timothy to you soon, that I also may be cheered when I receive news about you. I have no one else like him who will show genuine concern for your welfare. For everyone looks out for their own interests, not those of Jesus Christ. But you know that Timothy has proved himself, because as a son with his father, he has served with me in the work of the gospel. I hope, therefore, to send him as soon as I see how things go with me. And I am confident in the Lord that I myself will come very soon. But I think it is necessary to send back to you Epaphroditus, my brother, co-worker, and fellow soldier, who is also your messenger, whom you sent to take care of my needs. For he longs for all of you, and is distressed because you heard he was ill. Well, indeed he was, and almost died. But God had mercy on him, and not only him, but also on me, to spare me sorrow upon sorrow. Therefore, I am all the more eager to send him, so that when you see him again, you may be glad, and I may have less anxiety. Welcome him in the Lord with great joy, and honor people like him. Because he almost died for the work of Christ, he risked his life to make up for the help you yourselves could not give me. Timothy and Epaphroditus, two people important to Paul, two people who were important to the Christians in Philippi. On this occasion, Paul didn't just mention them by name, though, which he does fairly often in his letters. He described them, described what kind of people they were. With Timothy, I have no one like him who takes a genuine interest in your welfare. Everyone is seeking their own interest, not those of Jesus Christ. And I thought about this and how self-sacrificing Timothy was. This past week on the news, I saw a lady, there's been a lot of discussion about people being able to get out of their homes, businesses reopening, things like that. And the news interviewed one lady, and she just said one thing. She said, I want my freedom back. And I can understand those feelings, and I don't know anything about that lady. I'm sure she's a wonderful woman. But I thought, her phrase, I want my freedom back, that was all about her. That wasn't about whether or not it was safe for her or her family or her other loved ones. I want my freedom back. Randy Newman this past week in his video, he said it's hard for Americans to be told to stay at home because we're so focused on our freedom. And I understand that too. But Timothy, Paul describes as a person not concerned for himself, but concerned for others. He also has proven character. And someone wants to find character as doing the right thing when no one is looking. That's what kind of person Timothy was. And then Paul also says that as a son with a father, he has served with me, indicating a very tender, personal kind of relationship between Paul and Timothy. Now, for Epaphroditus, Paul calls him my brother, my co-worker, my fellow soldier, your messenger, and someone who helped Paul. And then he says that Epaphroditus was distressed because word had reached them that the Christians in Philippi were concerned because they heard Epaphroditus was ill, and they were concerned for his welfare. And so Paul wanted to send him back so that they could be relieved that yes, he had been sick, yes, he almost died, but he's okay now. And then he risked his life to help Paul, which indicates, again, a sacrificial kind of spirit. Timothy and Epaphroditus, two people who inspired Paul, and two people whom I'm sure were inspired by Paul. So the question is, who inspires you? Who's someone you have known or know even now? I think about Bob Rice, someone that I met during a short season when he was an intern at a church where I was serving. I was not his direct supervisor, but I had the opportunity of interacting with Bob every week. was a young guy. He had finished up his undergraduate degree, and he was feeling a pull or a call into ministry, and that's one reason he was working with us as an intern. And I was so impressed with him, with his character and with his enthusiasm for Jesus and his enthusiasm for telling other people about Jesus. And Bob felt a call to Africa, wanted to be in cross-cultural ministry, wanted to be a missionary. And that's something I've never, ever had energy for myself. Admire other people. In fact, when I was in undergrad school studying for ministry, most of the people on campus wanted to serve in the United States. We had a missions program, we had a missions degree, and a small percentage of people were planning to become missionaries, and we admired them, but we didn't want to be them. And just a few years after that, a Christian musician named Scott Wesley Brown released a song titled, "Lord, Please Don't Send Me to Africa." And the lyrics included lines like, I'll tithe 11%, I'll volunteer for the nursery, I'll go on the youth group retreat, I'll usher, I'll deacon, I'll go door to door, just keep me warming in this seat. Please don't send me to Africa. But for Bob, going to Africa was exactly what he wanted to do. So this kid from California, from the Bay Area in California, who went to undergrad school in Colorado, ended up going to Africa for a short-term trip. And there he met Christy, a young lady from Illinois, who was also serving in Africa. They struck up a friendship. Eventually it turned romantic. They came back to the States after their short-term assignments, continued dating. She moved to California to be near Bob and his family. They got engaged, they got married, and now they've been serving in Africa for quite a number of years, serving together. And every time I read their blog, I get inspired by what they're doing. And so different from what I feel called to do. And yet, they're inspiring to me. And that's what Paul was pointing us to, people who inspire us. And people that we can hold up and say, that's someone who's serving God in a very special way. I think it's also fitting that this weekend we are remembering people who inspire us because of Memorial Day weekend. We remember men and women who have died serving this country in the military. Originally called Decoration Day, it began at Waterloo, New York on May 5th, 1866, and was originally a day to remember those who died in the Civil War. But it became an official federal holiday in 1971, and it's been expanded to remember veterans of all wars and conflicts. And it's a good thing to do, to remember those dedicated people. I am inspired as I remember those who have given their lives for something bigger than themselves, like veterans. I'm also inspired by Bob and Christy and their experiences in Africa. People are inspiring. Paul was inspired by Timothy and Epaphroditus. They were inspired by him. We are given to one another for the purpose of encouragement and inspiration. As you are the beloved, know that you are inspiring someone. Who are the beloved? Go and be the beloved.